Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Girl Talk. I am Pix 11 reporter Katie Corrado. Girl Talk is all about showcasing women and girls in the New York City community who are doing amazing things, shattering the glass ceiling. And as we approach the 18th anniversary of 9/11 tomorrow, we wanted to put a special focus on those female first responders. So here's a look at our guest this week, Brenda Berkman.
I was tired of being told, you can't do that because you're a girl.
Retired FDNY fire captain Brenda Berkman has spent life blazing her own path. In 1982, Berkman won the right for women to become New York City firefighters after successfully suing the FDNY.
I thought I could be a good firefighter, and I thought other women could be good firefighters, and I thought the fire service could benefit from having women in the fire department.
Berkman's next defining role came after 9/11.
I was at the World Trade Center on 9/11. I responded there as a firefighter, as a fire officer.
Since then, Berkman has been a voice speaking up for the memories of female first responders killed in the attacks. She retired from the department after 25 years of service and is now a volunteer tour guide at the 9/11 Museum. Berkman's also reinvented herself as an artist, transforming her experiences into a series of prints documenting the construction of One World Trade Center.
If you come and look at this work, hopefully you'll walk away with great hope.
All right, a woman who has one of the most incredible stories, Brenda Berkman. Thanks for taking the time out, especially during this time of the year. We appreciate it. Your story just has so many incredible facets to it and so many pieces. But I want to start from the beginning. You became a lawyer, and that background really helped you as you transitioned to become a firefighter.
Well, I like to think so. I mean, because I had some experience as a lawyer and knew how to talk to lawyers and knew something about, discrimination law and also, what goes on in a trial. I think I was able, as the named class plaintiff and the only named class plaintiff, I was the only member of the group who stepped forward and was willing to pursue the case against the city that their test was not job-related and discriminated against women. So,
well, let's talk about that. So you decided in the 80s that you wanted to be a firefighter.
70s, actually.
In the
so,
70s.
Yeah, the first time that women were even allowed to take the test was 1977. So it didn't matter if you were, the strongest woman in the world or an Olympic caliber athlete. If you happened to have been born a woman, you were not allowed to even apply to become a New York City firefighter until 1977. Not that long ago.
So you applied, and the physical fitness test was what was keeping everybody out.
Well, was what kept every single woman out. I mean, the city admitted it was the hardest test they'd ever given for any job. They admitted that they had specifically changed the test in response to women first applying. And we were arguing that the test was not job-related, namely that it did not test for the abilities actually needed to be trained as a firefighter. If the city had been able to prove that it was job-related, we would have lost our case. It wouldn't have mattered that all the women failed it. So we proved that, and the city had to develop a new job-related test using male incumbent firefighters. And then about 45 of us passed, and over 40 of us went into the fire academy.
So what were some of the things on this physical fitness test that were not job related that led to every female failing it?
Basically, every single element of the test in some way violated the, being able to show that it was job related. So, I could go through all the many parts of the test, but just to summarize that, there wasn't, it was not scientific. And so, the city brought in their experts to try and prove that it was scientific, and we brought in our experts to prove that it was not scientific way of testing for abilities, and we won. So then the city had to go and develop a test which was job related, and that's the one that the women passed. And it's very similar to what is used today to test for firefighters all over the country, actually.
So essentially, because of you, the term fireman is pretty much wiped from the vocabulary,
I wish
should
that
be.
were the case.
Should be.
I wish that were the case, because the civil service title for my job has been firefighter even before women were allowed to take the test. So they had changed the title already. But unfortunately, I think in the public's mind and in many male firefighters' minds, the idea of a woman being a firefighter is still somewhere out there beyond the pale. We have women astronauts, we have candidates for the President of the United States who are women, and you would hope that we were beyond that, but unfortunately not. And after 9/11, so much of the public discourse, and I include the media in this, they went back to saying policeman, there were 2 women police officers, first responders, who lost their lives on 9/11 trying to save the lives of others. They were police officers, they were not policemen. And also with firefighters, we had started to see more women in the fire service around the country. And after 9/11, I had all these women firefighters from around the country saying, what is going on in New York? All we're hearing about are the men, and we know that women were at the Trade Center doing exactly the same work that the men were doing. How can we never hear about them in the media? And I'm sorry to disparage your occupation,
hey.
but the media likes to take what they taped in September of 2001 and replay it on the anniversaries. And I commend WPIX for talking, wanting to talk to women first responders and tell the story of women first responders, because it should be an inspiring story for not just for little girls and young women, but also for little boys and young men, that all of our country, the women as well as the men, stepped up on 9/11 and did whatever they could to help their community, their nation, their world, to recover from this terrible, dastardly attack on innocent civilians.
Do you think that we as a country, when we think about the first responders of 9/11, automatically we think it was the men?
Well, we do, because that's the image that was presented to us. And I'm not a psychologist, but there is an argument that when people feel under attack, when they feel threatened, they hearken back to the Father Knows Best, Ozzie and Harriet days, which is not the reality of our world. People of color died in 9/11. People from 90 different countries died in 9/11. And everyone, the entire world, stepped up to help New York after 9/11, women as well as men. And that's the story that we have to be telling, because that unites us all. And it shows the tremendous commitment of women and the patriotism of women as well as of the men.
And yourself included, you were not even on duty, correct, on 9/11 when you went
Correct.
into
And other women firefighters who were off duty also managed to get themselves to the Trade Center. And then there were the women who were on duty. And, we had only about 25 women who were active firefighters at the time of 9/11. But there were many more women police officers, women EMTs. I just want to call out the names of the 3 women who were lost that day. Yamel Marino, who was worked for a private ambulance company. She was an EMT dispatched by the New York City Fire Department, killed tending to a patient at Ground Zero. Moira Smith, an NYPD officer from the 13th Precinct, and Captain Kathy Mazza, who was with the Port Authority Police. Those women, and then the women who managed to survive, because many women, and you can read about their stories in a book called The Women at Ground Zero, which is first-person accounts of women responding to the World Trade Center on 9/11. Those women, took tremendous risks. And they did not run away. They ran to the Trade Center to help. And we should all, as a nation, be celebrating that. That takes nothing away from the men who also, no one is questioning their bravery. But why is it, as a society, that we still question whether women have the cojones to be able to perform, physically demanding, heroic work?
Great question. Wouldn't we all love an answer?
And many other, and many
a
other
lot of
roles,
other things. Yeah.
many other roles in our
so
society.
Many, so many.
President, for instance.
You did something really interesting in the years post 9/11, and that was become an artist. So 25 years, 24 years?
So I was 25 years in the fire department, and I stayed 5 years after 9/11. I got promoted to captain, but it was time for me to do something else. And I was having a lot of difficulty deciding what that was. But I pretty much decided I was done with the emergency services. I continued to volunteer. A lot of the women who were affected by 9/11 have subsequently tried to help communities affected by other kinds of traumatic events, whether it's, Hurricane Katrina or Sandy, or the terrible situation in Northeast Japan that occurred with the tsunami. All these different kinds of things. I decided to do volunteer work, so I'm very involved with my church, Fifth Avenue Presbyterian, and the New York City Presbytery, and all kinds of social justice issues. And also, with trying to help with community rebuilding and resiliency after various kinds of disasters. But I wanted to make something. I wanted to be able to be creative. And so I started going to the Art Students League. Who doesn't go to the Art Students League?
Firefighter to artist?
Yeah,
sure,
and even though I had no idea, was I going to be able to do any kind of art or not, I found at the league, a tremendous community of artists and teachers who, put me on this path to try and make things and express things. And it took me 10 years before I was able to do any art that explicitly had 9/11 as its subject. And then I organized a collaborative art project for artists on the 10th anniversary. And then I did this gigantic, I call it gigantic, 36 separate.
It is
36,
gigantic.
I know,
Yes.
it took you hours to look at it. So 36 separate views of the rebuilding of the World Trade Center and Lower Manhattan from all around the 5 boroughs in New Jersey. So I wanted that to be inspiring, the way that I'm inspired by the rebuilding of Lower Manhattan. How it's beautiful now, and when I go out there and I'm doing my tours as a volunteer of the 9/11 Memorial, and I did one yesterday, I'm looking all around and I'm seeing, the beautiful trees and the beautiful buildings and the people, and I see the names of my friends, on the memorial, because I had worked with about 250 of the 343 firefighters that were killed that day. And, there were 5 members who were lost out of my firehouse, and I could go on and on about all the people that I knew, but to be able to tell people about their sacrifices and the sacrifices of all the people who were lost that day, and to be able to honor their memories, it's important.
Was that cathartic for you?
I don't know. Sometimes, I get choked up talking about it. It's 18 years later, but I don't know about if cathartic is the right word. I think it's important to me that I'm one of the lucky ones. It was, a lot of it was luck of the draw who got killed and who survived that day. And I'm one of the lucky ones, and so far, I'm really happy to see that the memorial now also includes tributes to the people who have died and are ill from 9/11 related illnesses. And that was, a big fight, and a shout out to, the Congress people from New York, and to the Feel Good Foundation, and to all the people, Jon Stewart, all the people who worked to get, the recognition that we need to keep helping those people whose health has been affected by their service.
One quick thing I want to point out. The artwork is now on display in the same building where you went so many times for your lawsuit in the 80s.
Well, that show's
correct?
over, but you can watch it. I know it's like full circle. No, it's full circle. You know, I love it. I love it that I had a show in the gallery named after the judge, in my case, Judge Sifton, and in the courthouse where I won my lawsuit. And there's my art about my subsequent life, both as a firefighter and as an artist now. And, you know, it was such an honor to be able to show it there. And the 9/11 Museum has collected 36 views. Fingers crossed that they'll actually have a show of it sometime soon. And, you know, so life goes on.
Before we wrap, the one thing we ask every guest is, what advice would you give to your 15-year-old self?
My 15-year-old self? Well, I would say that things that you think you're going to be doing at the age of 15 into the future, right, may not turn out that way. And you can encounter barriers, you can encounter tests and challenges, but if you believe that, you know, the course that you're pursuing is worthwhile, that you should pursue that and, you know, work around, try other things, join together with others in solidarity, because, you know, you're not going to do this by yourself. Social change is a long process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And so only with the support of others, which I got a lot of, and I give a shout out to all my women firefighter and male firefighter and all the women's groups that supported me over the years, you know, because people can't do this on their own. They need the support of others.
Great note to end it on. Thank you for your service to the city. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me here today.
So
thanks
much,
for
so much.
having me.
For everybody watching, if you know somebody who you would like to nominate for Girl Talk, we want to showcase everybody who's doing such amazing things in the New York City community. So please reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.